The way I trade is I like reading how price action works, right? So basically, this is a downtrend, then we broke structure. This was supposed to be an uptrend, then we broke this low right here, downtrend, up, and then we corrected back above this level, went down, right? So basically, the way I trade is just breaking highs and lows, right? So the way I'm gonna go back and show this trade, the way I won this trade was I was just waiting for price actions to start with market open, right? So the only way I would enter sales, because we kept buying above this level, was if we like had a close candle below this level, right? Because as you can see, we had indication here, didn't work out, right? It didn't continue down. Because it like this was basically indication right here, even though that's a little bit on the 4 hour. Like, oh, one more thing, I trade ICC, indication, correction, continuation below this level right here at 3,972. We indicated that we would be in sales, right? I don't care how much we've sold, I would still sell below if we correct above it, right? So like, and I say that because it's like, look how much we sold below here, right? Like we sold, okay, maybe right, all right, we sold a lot right below here, and then we bought up a little. Sorry, we bought up a little, and then we kept selling down. Boom, sell below, correction, and then boom, sold more, right? So in my head, it's like people would see this as it's overextended, which it probably was. That's where we bought up, but it can happen where it can keep selling down. Anyway, so that was for sales. Now let me show you how I got into this trade here. So the way I get into a trade is I do markups, right? So my only markups before I entered this trade was these two. So if it broke above this high, then I would be looking for longs. If we broke below this low, I'd be looking for sells. But I have to wait for a close 4 hour candle for it to be considered indication for me. Now, if I skip ahead, I started noticing that we were creating a low here once this candle closed, right? So I low-key like marked this level, and then I marked this level because I seen it playing out already. But then I just kind of took it off because you don't want to mark levels that aren't created yet, because then it starts messing with your head, you know? So I kept these two levels, I took them off, and then I seen price close above this level, right? So in my head, we created a high, right? And then we created a higher low. Then we indicated above this level, right? So the reason why I took my markups, you might be asking, in the beginning, is because this candle could have like closed maybe like around here, you know? And then I would mark up these two levels, right? But the reason why I didn't mark them up in the beginning is because this candle could have also just been red, and it would have went down. So then this level shouldn't have been marked up in the first place, you know? So instead, if this was a red candle, then I would have marked up this high. So that's just like the basics. So now I marked up these 2 points. I know if we close below this point, we're in sales. If we close above this point, we're in buys, which we ended up doing. So now what I do is when I see indication is I go down to the 1 hour. I don't wait for correction on the 4 hour, because sometimes that just doesn't happen and it gets a little confusing, right? So what I like doing is I like seeing if the 1 hour structure agrees with the 4 hour. So what I seen here was this was an indicated point, right? And I was not up at 2 in the morning, by the way. So price was just buying up. I usually wake up around 6 a.m. So here's 6 a.m. And then I'm not gonna lie, I didn't wake up till like 8:30 in the morning, so skip 2. And I'm not gonna, I got really lucky. I missed entry. So when I woke up, I'm like, oh shit, there's a trade to get in. So what I did is I still did not buy at this level. Like I probably could have made more RR, but I wasn't feeling it because sometimes a trade could go wrong and it won't like re-meet with this point if it's going the opposite way. But if it does, then that means that there is, in this case, buyers, right? So the way I set up my stop loss is I like going to the wick of wherever the next higher low came, right? If it was a downtrend on the 4 hour and we made indication for sales, then it would be the wick on the lower high, right? So here we would put our stop loss right here. But then sometimes, let me just show you guys something. Sometimes like this, right? You'll see price come back below and try to meet this point. And what it'll do is it'll try to take out the wick. I don't know why. Like it's just maybe like a pool of liquidity so we could pull back up. So what I like doing is I just like putting it $1 below. So right here it would be 3998.43 and I'll put it down $1. So 3997.43, 42, whatever. So now what I'll do is I'll set it up like this. I bought like around this point because I was already up right here. Set my stop loss, and then to set my target price, what I do is I go on the back on the 4 hour. So I go back on the 4 hour. So my entry level and my TP level are on the 4 hour, but my stop loss level was created on the 1 hour. So what I like doing is I like targeting points where a wick wasn't made. What I mean by that is, as you can see here, there's a level of sellers, right? So when this point was hit, we started selling, and you can see that here on the right side. We were buying up, touched this point, and then we sold, right? So what I notice is when there's a wick, like this point, there is a wick right next to it, but it's 4 candles. So since it's 4 candles, this is the point that I would target, right? I feel like I'm not making sense. It makes sense in my head. Okay, so say for instance it looked exactly like this, right? Like fuck, how do I say it? Hold on. Okay, maybe I could just show you guys another example. As you can see here, price was buying up and it wicked this level of buyers out, right? Sellers tried taking out this level and then it just started buying back up from this level, right? So we know that sellers already met this point and they were taken out by buyers. What I mean, what I'm trying to say by that is sellers already tested this level, right? And they were met by buyers up here. But what I mean more in general is buyers weren't strong enough to hold them above this level, right? Sellers were able to come below this point once again. And usually when you know there's a point of strong buyers is when they don't let sellers touch this level again. So what I mean by that is if you see my target price right here, I'm going to go all the way to the left and you're going to see that it was never wicked out again where the buyers were, right? So bam, here. It was never wicked by buyers again, right? This point was. And even if we go to the right, this point won't be touched by buyers a lot. So look, as you can see, this would have been maybe other people's target price, which is why price started selling, because they thought that the buyers would enter here, which they did, right? They did enter here, but buyers weren't strong enough at this level, which is why it just created a lower high. Now, if we go to this point, price was never wicked below this point, which is why here where I set my target price, it wicked there and then it bought up like crazy because buyers were so strong here holding this level. Now let me give you another example. Here at this point, Okay, now sometimes buyers won't always buy like crazy after it touches that point, as you can see here, right? At these two levels, there were strong buyers. It was never wick below again. But sellers were stronger at this level, right? So sometimes it won't always buy up like crazy, but it's generally like I like putting my TPs at these types of places because I noticed that there's like strong buyers there. It would be vice versa if it was for shorts. I don't know if I'm explaining well. Oh, here's a big trade that this one I never took. It was more of a back test because I recently started trading this. So this is like the best point to make. And this would have wicked below, so I probably would have got caught out by slippage. And since this was like a long trade, I probably would have been moving my TP a little up because I would have been scared. So I probably like still would have made money on it. Anyway, so here was my entry, right? This is kind of like what's going on right now. You know, buyers are buying above a certain level. Then we made indication. Um, where exactly? Oh, I remember why. So this indication happened at nighttime, and we did come back above this level, but I wasn't able to buy in like at that certain time. When I backtest, I like keeping it realistic. There's no way I'm gonna be buying at 3 in the morning because I'm not gonna be up, right? All right, enough yapping. Let's get back to the point. I forgot what point I was on. This one was probably so far my best live trade. I seen price close below this level. Let me take this out so I don't get confused. Okay, price closed below this level. We corrected back up. All right, we corrected back up, and then we closed above this point, and then we had another closure, and then I sold below. Now you may be asking, well, why didn't I just set my stop loss instead right here? Because I wait for one candle closure and then I start selling. You would have been stopped out. So are you lying? No. To me, this candle was just too small for me to entry, right? I needed like a bigger candle to close above this level. Like all right, look, the closure was too like close to this level, right? If the closure was like all the way up here, then okay, I would have took these sales, right? But since the closure was like really like close to this like level that I was going to be selling below, I wasn't really confident in the trade until this next candle, which closed, yeah, look, closed literally like right where I was saying where I'd be comfortable with it. What the fuck? Okay, like you might, bro, I hate how people are going to be thinking like I'm remembered where that candle was going to close. I swear to you, I didn't. Okay, so yeah, now I feel comfortable. See, even now, like I would feel comfortable. So to me, this is like I would feel comfortable in the trade now, and then bam, that's London session right there for you. And where's my other trade, bro? Did that shit get deleted? Okay. Another way I trade is on the 1 hour. Um, what I like doing is for the correction, I like seeing the opposite trend on the correction for the 15-minute. So I correlate it with the 1 hour. So if the 1 hour is correcting, I wait for the opposite trend on the 15 minutes to happen. So as you can see here, this is a high that was made, then a higher low, and then a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and then we broke structure right here, and then well, nah, not really, and then we came up here, right? So this would be the high. So what I did was I told myself, okay, I forgot which point I sold from. I'm pretty sure I was more confident with this area. So my second entry was right here. This is what my second entry looked like. Because every time we usually break structure on the 15-minute, which was doing the opposite trend on the 1 hour, or obviously like it broke structure, like it's gonna go the opposite way. That's how my two strategies work.